We will now look at the dividend discount model. We will discuss three versions of the dividend discount model that are based on different assumptions about the expected growth rate within the company. In the first scenario, we will discuss how to use the dividend discount model to value a company where no growth is expected. Further, we will assume that the company pays out 100% of its earnings in the form of dividends. In the second scenario, we will assume that growth is expected, and further, the growth rate is expected to be constant. This is also known as the Gordon growth model. In the final scenario, we will assume growth is expected within the company, but the growth rate is expected to be non-constant. The cash flow inputs that we will use in each of these dividend discount models are the dividends expected to be paid by the company. Bear in mind the mechanics of this model will also apply to the free cash flow models that we will discuss later. The main difference is the cash flow used will change from being the dividends expected to be paid by the company to estimates of free cash flow. The dividend discount model states that the price of a share is equal to the present value of the future stream of dividends a shareholder expects to receive. So the price of a share at any date is equal to the present value of the future stream of dividends a shareholder expects to receive. Further, if the shareholder intends to sell the share at a future date, we can incorporate the expected price that the shareholder will receive at that future date into this equation. Bear in mind that the value of the share will not change due to differences in investors' investment horizons. The value of a share will remain the same regardless of the investment horizon of investors. For example, if a shareholder has a 1-year investment horizon, the value of the share will remain constant, but the portion of the value that the shareholder expects to receive in the form of dividends will be a much lower proportion of the overall value of the share. This is because the shareholder will receive 1 year's worth of dividend payments. In contrast, the price that the shareholder will receive in 1 year's time when they sell the share on is a much higher proportion of the overall value of the share. The reason why the share price is a high proportion of the share's value is because the price will be received in 1 year's time and is therefore not heavily discounted. Secondly, the purchaser is paying for the right to a future dividend stream from year 2 onwards. Let's consider an investor with a 50-year investment horizon. We can see the value of the share remains the same, but the portion of the value that the investor expects to receive in the form of dividends, or the present value of the dividend payments, accounts for a much higher proportion of the share's overall value. This is because the investor will receive a stream of future dividends for 50 years, from the investment date up until year 50. In contrast, the portion of the overall value of the share that the investor expects to receive when they sell the share on in year 50 is a much lower proportion of the share's value. This is because the price received will be received in 50 years' time and is therefore heavily discounted. In addition, the purchaser is paying for the right to a future dividend stream that starts 51 years from the investment date onwards. The dividend discount model tells us that the price of a share is equal to the present value of the future stream of dividends a shareholder expects to receive. It's not practical to estimate the expected dividends in each future year and then to discount them back to arrive at a value for the share, particularly for long investment horizons. We can make the process more efficient if the dividends are expected to grow at a constant rate year on year. In this case, we can use a perpetuity formula to quickly and easily calculate the value of that future stream of dividends. We will now look at how to use the dividend discount model to value a company where different patterns of growth are expected. In scenario 1, we will assume no growth is expected. In scenario 2, we will assume constant and sustainable growth rate is expected. In scenario 3, we will assume a non-constant growth rate is expected.